call it that, or confrontation, when life for them became untenable in Yemen, southern Arabia. They had been there for certainly 2,000 years, and had survived through the whole period of the Prophet and Islam as well. Yet if you see them, they look like the indigenous people there. So you say, oh, well, they are converts. Well, it could be converts. Or when people intermarry with indigenous people, slowly the indigenous strain takes over because the original strain is overwhelmed by the local intermarriage situation. So I don't know what the cause of it is. Only a DNA test would tell you all that. You would have to measure the DNA of the Jewish Yemenites with the DNA of most of the local Yemenites, and then you'd see how much intermarriage occurred or whether there was a separate line or so on and so forth. They did that with a Nigerian tribe recently that was claiming descent from the Jewish high priests. And lo and behold, they found there is a marker for the priest line in Judaism in DNA. A strange marker that only exists in this priest line genealogy. And lo and behold, they found the marker in this tribe in Nigeria someplace that was claiming this. So, you know, these things do happen. Even though the tribe looked totally Afro in every way, shape, or form, it had the DNA priest line marker from Palestine. And you'd have, I mean, I think DNA tests are really great in helping, you know, sort out, you know, prehistory. And the more people do this, to my mind, the better it is in terms of our understanding of who people are, where they came from, who they are, what they were. So I hope they do more and more of these things for all peoples. In any case, in Yemen, you could sort that out, but I'm not aware that it's been done to any extent. I certainly haven't followed it. But they were there very early. Certainly, they claimed that back in Solomon's time. Whether it goes back that far, the trade relations certainly did. And where there are trade relations, there are merchants. And where there are merchants, there are people who settle and stay there, become intermediaries. And so it does develop from there. And the Job stories 4 or 5 centuries later show that their presence is in the northern part of the peninsula too. And then after the wars in Palestine, certainly people fleeing Roman occupation must have gone down there. Ones who were unable, unwilling, and who were being pursued by Roman forces. The Roman forces did not get down that far. Roman forces swept across northern Syria. They swept into Egypt and all these other places, but they didn't get down into these outlying areas. So to my mind, those are the kind of people who brought some of the ideas that I think we see in Islam down there, and in connection with which the Prophet became familiar and took off from that point. Because you get a lot of, I work on the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are found alongside the Dead Sea, and you get a lot of, for instance, the Yom al-Din that the Prophet speaks about, the Day of Judgment. Well, it's all in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's called Yom HaMishpat, the Day of Judgment. It's one of the most important Dead Sea Scroll materials, and they say on the Day of Judgment, God will remove all idolaters off the earth. Well, that's right, what the Quran is talking about. But this is a document maybe 600 years before the Quran, from the Dead Sea area. And to my mind, those ideas do travel down. Now, again, a believer is not interested in these connections, since everything to a believer, whatever the religion is, miraculous. But since we're in academia, we're not interested so much in miraculous, but in what we can chart as historical and intercultural. So it's worthwhile pointing these things out. I'll do that as we get into the text, show you what ideas are familiar to me from the Dead Sea Scrolls. The biblical stories that we all know about are familiar from the Bible. Okay, Muhammad has his own version. The angel has given or recited, or he has recited, however you see it, his own version. And it looks as if this has been done from memory and not from an actual text right next to somebody reading it. And we'll be able to see that in the Joseph story. When he recites the Joseph story, he knows basically, probably knows the Joseph story better than most of the people in this class. Even religious Christian people in this class, who know it the best. Jewish people don't know it so well. But because they don't read the Bible any more than anyone else, most of them. but religious Christians do read the Bible. And the Joseph story is in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, and the interesting thing is what he adds, what is illustrative of his own character and personality or his own interest. You say, oh, well, he didn't add that, the angel added it. Okay, fine, whoever added it, it is different from the earlier version, which is maybe 2,000 years before. That is undeniable. One version is 2,000 years earlier than the other version. So, I mean, you can say there's no connection, but in fact, one version did antedate the other and was familiar in the area for the previous 2,000 years. So, in fact, it's like saying which came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, the chicken gave birth to the newer egg. I don't know about the older egg. In any event, we know he knows a lot of the Bible stories about Moses, Aaron, and so on and so forth. That's pretty straightforward. But his version of them is often uniquely his own. That is maybe heaven-given, miraculous, maybe the way his memory works on things. I lectured you in class. A lot of what I talk about is based on memory. If you were to lecture the same thing I lectured, your memory would be different than mine. And you would spin it differently than I would spin it. This is just the way oral tradition works, the way human beings are when they speak orally, and it isn't written down in front of them. When a thing is written down in front of them, what happens? It gets frozen. That becomes